Good evening to the Finance Committee meeting, joint meeting with the Select Board, School Committee, SchCmte School Building Committee. We have a very small agenda, but a lot of information to go through tonight, so please bear with us if this presentation goes a little bit longer than normal. But again, it's very important that we go through these things before town meeting. On the agenda tonight is just the SchCmte School meeting discussion. We are tabling for now a reserve fund transfer request for the Indian Hill building. We will be going through a small presentation for a very, very first iteration of the 27. And with that, let's start our SchCmte School project discussion. I'd like to go through the presentation first and then open it up for questions or comments from the boards first, and then we can open it up to the public after all that is done. Okay. So with that, let's start the project itself. We're going to look at the project financial overview, the funding and the offsets from the MSBA and some other funding that the town is putting through. Of course, the property tax impact of these decisions and what-if scenarios. So we've had some good news since the last community forum that we held. There was a Board of Directors meeting from the MSBA on August 27th, and they finalized the MSBA grant at $38.2 million, up from the $29.4 million we were using as an estimate all along. So that's great news, because if you remember, all I've said all along is we need to get that bond amount that we're issuing down, and this goes a long way to getting that number down. Unfortunately, since we last did our updates, interest rates have jumped up a little bit, 25 basis points or 1/4%. The good news, though, is the bond coupons have remained steady at that 5% for the first 11 years or so, and then down into the 4s for the remainder. So when the yields go up, but the coupon stays the same, bond premium then suffers. So a $3.5 million bond premium was reduced down to $2 million. So hopefully things can stay pretty even about the rest, but it seems like it's just the premium that will be taking the hit going forward. We also have town meeting language, an article in the ballot vote, and we'll be taking a look at that. Town meeting article, as I've said many times, if we expect to use state money, we have to play by state rules. And state rules for this article is they have very specific language they want into this article, and it also includes, since it's a borrowing authorization, the usual language, legalese for borrowing authorizations. The bond authorization includes the entire project cost, which includes the feasibility study. We've already paid for the feasibility study. We've already taken that money out of capital stabilization account, and we'll see how the motion for the article deals with that. And of course, the actual bond issue is reduced by the grant and the school building stabilization fund. So this is the entire motion. This is the motion that will be printed in the town meeting booklet. Good luck if you'd like to try and read that right now. Like I said, there is a lot in there. And if you go to the next slide, Robin, I highlighted in bold the things that were important. And if we go to the next one, we can just filter it right out. And let's read through this, because this is important. It says this article appropriates the sum of $99,704,151 for the full program, though the sum of $1,085,000 has been previously appropriated, and further reduction in project expenses of $539,200, netting a final appropriation amount of $98,079,951. All right, what does all that mean? The entire project, as we'll see on the next slide going forward, is $99.7 million, which includes the feasibility study. That is the amount that we submitted to the MSBA for a project. $1,085,000 is the feasibility study. So if we could just concentrate on what the school is going to cost to build for this article and what we're going to be borrowing, we take out the $1,085,000. And MSBA was happy enough to allow us to put this language in because everything has to be approved by the MSBA. So it says that we've previously appropriated that amount. And further, a reduction in project expenses of $539,200. So some members of the SchCmte Building Committee and some other town officials around this table got together on a conference call and went through the budget and came up with $539,200 worth of cuts from the budget. Unfortunately, when we went to the MSBA to say, hey, we got down the budget by $529,000, they said, sorry, you already gave us a budget of $99,704, but we'll let you put it in the motion that it's been reduced. So that's exactly what we did. So it comes out to $98,079,951, which is the final project to build the school. So then the second bullet point says that the town appropriate $99,704,151 for the purpose of paying the costs for the design, construction, and so forth of SchCmte School, which school facility shall have an anticipated useful life of at least 50 years. So this is language from the MSBA, basically telling us, you build a school, don't come knocking on our door for 50 years. That's what they mean here. Third bullet point says, provided that any appropriation hereunder shall be subject to and contingent upon an affirmative vote of the town to exempt the amounts required for the payment of interest and principal on said borrowing from the limitations on taxes imposed by Proposition 2.5. This is a debt exclusion vote, and it's contingent upon the ballot vote that will happen on November 1st. So if it passes the town meeting, doesn't pass at the ballot, this article basically doesn't apply because it was contingent, on that ballot vote. And the last couple of sentences are just saying that any premium we receive shall reduce the amount of the borrowing after we pay our borrowing costs, and that the MSBA grant shall reduce that borrowing also. So that's the motion that's going to be going to town meeting. Okay. Let's take those numbers that were just in there and kind of reconcile it out. Top line, total project, $99,704. It includes the feasibility study, so we can subtract that $1,085,000. Come down to $98,619. Identified $539,200 in reductions. Brings us down to $98,079,951, which we saw in the town meeting motion. Now, if we look at the MSBA grant, it's up to $38,192,408. And on top of that $38,192, we can have an extra $662,000 for our contingencies. Now, the MSBA has to approve any contingency amounts that we use if we're looking to get reimbursement on those dollars. So it's a potential of an extra $662,000. We take out the feasibility study grant portion. We're receiving $586,000 on that for the feasibility study. We took out the expense. We need to take out the MSBA grant. And the same thing goes with that $123,000. We took out $539,000 in expenses. We would have received $123,000 in grant money for those items. Brings us down to a net grant of $38,145. And the net project costs, the town's responsibility for this construction of the school, $59,934,262. And the next section goes through some of these stabilization dollars that we're putting through pre-construction. Cash basically to pay for construction costs. We've done the first 4 items there already in the past 2 fiscal years. The rest are the projections that we came up with back in February, including the school contributions for them to use their school choice monies for their capital. We do all that, It's $7.1 million in stabilization funds. We have a bond issuance amount of $53,441, and our premium that we'll receive, which is basically a payment rate off the top of that bond of $2,054,000, brings us down to a net bond that the town will issue of $50,725,000. A long way from where we started. Next page, Robin. This is the project budget, final project budget that was submitted to the MSBA. And you can see the total cost for each of the items, from feasibility study right down to furniture and fixtures. Our contingency costs are right there for $1.6 million and $817,000. And potential granted, that's $662 from the MSBA. Bottom line number, the net project amount, $59,934 that we saw on that previous slide. This is the ballot question that will be in front of voters on November 1st. Again, this is state law. They're very restrictive on what can go in on the language for a ballot vote. It doesn't give an amount. It just says, do you want to exempt this project from Prop 2.5? That's basically all this is saying. Yes or no? Right. Now let's talk about the estimated tax impacts. Calculations, as we've been using straight along, is based on FY25's average home value of $694,868, using the split tax rate, which we use in Littleton. Updated values for FY26 won't be known until November, and it's usually in the first couple of weeks of November that the select board meets on their classification hearing to set the tax rate. So things will be known, unfortunately, after town meeting of what happens with property values. Final bond amount is again reduced by the premium and the school building stabilization fund. And additional future contributions from the debt exclusion stabilization account are based on the debt exclusion financial plan that the three boards voted back in April of 2025. Property value increases that we use in our model to forecast out to 20 years are based on historical values that we've had. Again, FY26 is a reval year. Values as of January 1st, 2025. So property values will change significantly, but as property values change, so will that average. And basically shouldn't change these numbers very much. In these numbers and these assumptions, there is no new growth estimated for the future. Specifically, new growth from 550 King. We don't know what's being built, when it's being built, and what the value of that property will be when it is built. So wouldn't it be prudent for us to assume anything in this model? But you can be assured that when it does hit, because it's new growth, the bigger property value base with a fixed payment spreads that payment over a bigger base, reducing the numbers. But we can't really show it here in our assumptions. We don't know what it is. Question also came up to earmark. You're jumping the gun. Go back one. To earmark 550 King Street revenues in the new growth, to say we're going to put X amount of dollars from new growth directly to this project. Again, it's not possible for us to guarantee anything at this point in time. Back to what I just said, we don't know what it is, number one. And number two, we don't really know the impact on the operating budget for that development. So we have to take care of our operating budget first and then look for other ways to spend or not spend that money. So it's not entirely off the table, but we just can't guarantee anything right now. So let's just jump straight to that first top line there, year one. It is down to $719.20 first year, worst year, as I like to say, and it decreases after that. You can see the total for the 20 years is just under $12,000, averaging just under $600 per year, a long way from where we started with this project. Big help was, of course, the MSBA grant, going up to that $38 million. This is again based on $694,000 average home value from FY25. And you can see in that second to last column on the right, the debt exclusion stabilization account. Town is putting, in addition to the $7 million that we're putting pre-construction, we're putting $10.5 million in inside levy dollars to offset this cost to the taxpayer to the tune of $10.6 million. Look in the next slide, we can see it graphically. Year one again, $719.20, or just about $180 per quarter. The averages for years 1 through 5, 6 through 10, you can see those numbers, 180, 165 basically per quarter. And towards the end of the project, years 11 through 20, about $130 per quarter, ending at $122.58 in year 20. The tax impact calculator, the little QR code on top of the page. The calculation has been updated on the town's website to reflect these new numbers. The FAQ on the town's website has been also updated to talk about this presentation. The slides are there already. And what else? There's a couple of other things that were added, and I'll get to those in a second. But everything has been updated. Go to the town website under boards and committees, look for the Shaker Lane School Building Committee, and those are the pages there. There's also links to the project page for the school department. One of the things being on the building committee, we've looked at this timeline every month for the past couple of years, and I never really paid much attention to it except for the end date. And looking at this, I really didn't realize this is going to be a 10-year project. Our second application to the MSBA was done in 2020, and we're looking at the project closeout in 2030. That's 10 years. If I look back at the last 3 schools we built, and I can go by the debt service that we paid, they're all 20-year bonds. Projects didn't overlap. The high school debt service ended 3 years ago, and there's 5 years left to go on Russell Street, which is the last project. So that's 8 years to basically build the middle school and Russell Street. And the middle school failed the first time through on debt exclusion vote, and we had to reapply. So you can see how the MSBA has just elongated this process from when we were used to it back 20 years ago. Again, we want $38 million from the MSBA. We play by their rules. So we're 5 years into this, and we haven't even come to a vote of the town yet. And we'll have 5 years after that to go. Now, if you look at the what ifs, and this is the important things to look at. If this project fails and we have to reapply to the MSBA, and we just saw that it's a 10-year timeline, basically. We reapply in 2027, which means we're not building the school till 2035, closing out the project in 2037. 10 years out. This is probably the best case if we get approved right away. One of the rules of thumb is project costs escalate at around 5% per year. If we take this $99 million, including the feasibility study, and we compound it at 5% per year for the next 10 years, we're looking at $161 million to build this school when the time comes if this fails. If we say 5% is too much, it should be 4. It's still around $150 million. And at 3, it's $130 million. thought we had sticker shock when we looked at $100 million of this school at $161 million. I don't even want to calculate what that impact is. What are the other alternatives that we have? So we can continue to utilize the existing school. Number one, just go on like nothing's happened and just keep going on. It's an alternative. We can continue to use the school, but we have a building code upgrade that we required when repairs exceed $2.73 million over a 5-year period. Using the existing school doesn't solve the space issues or meet the district's educational plan. There is no MSBA funding for the building code upgrade. And the cost of the building code upgrade we got in July of 2025 was $44 million. We can continue using the space and just add additional space through modulars. The school department has estimated 11 modular classrooms would meet the space needs required for the school. Estimated cost of $6 million. We would lose most of the play area around the school. It still doesn't solve the educational needs identified by the school department. No MSBA funding. And we could cover some of this cost using what we've built up, $3 million in the school stabilization fund as of this point to cover that. The code upgrade process. The building committee requisitioned this report from an independent company. Basically, what would cause us to meet those building code upgrades? And it's aptly named a triggering report. What would trigger the building codes? And on page 6 of this report, excuse me, and there's a link to this report, the full report, on the town's website. Page 6 says it identifies 7 things that could possibly total individually or in total that $2.73 million. Boilers fail beyond repair and need replacement. Air conditioning units or the generator fails. The fire control panel fails or ages out. The health department, this one kind of surprised me in reading this report. The health department could escalate from citations to enforcement on some things that they found in the kitchen of Shaker Lane. Right now they've issued citations for some equipment, but it could go to enforcement and ask us to actually do some renovations in the kitchen area. Grease traps, stoves and things like that. Number 5, the modular classrooms that we just discussed as being an alternative. The infrastructure costs, the electricity to go there, the septic to go there, the plumbing to go there, the security for that, the landscaping that needs to be done. That's all gets added to that 2.73 million. So just by adding some of those modulars that we think are going to help the space needs are going to hurt us possibly in meeting these code upgrades and going to that 2.73 million. Number 6, the lift breaks, and we need a handicap accessible elevator. Or the roof fails beyond repairs, requiring full roof replacement. So what happens with the building code upgrade? We would need to relocate 414 children that are right now in Russell Street, because the building code upgrade isn't something that we can do over summer vacation. So those kids need access to a cafeteria, to a gym, to restrooms. So we would have to get modular classrooms somewhere else at a different location to house 414 students. School department has come up with 22 modular classrooms, $12 million. So then the question becomes, where do they go? Do they go to Russell Street? Or do we start shifting grades? Do we put a higher grade into the modulars and start shifting some grades into the high school and from Russell Street into the middle school and put the Shaker Lane kids into Russell Street. We do that, we're not impacting 400 students, we're impacting 1,700 students by doing this, because everybody's gonna feel it. Talked about the code upgrades, $44 million estimate that we've had, $12 million for the 22 modulars, $56 million total project costs. We would receive similar bond premium that we're receiving now, $2 million. We have $3 million sitting in the stabilization fund that we could put towards this. So we would be issuing a $51 million 10-year bond if these code upgrades needed to be done. Yep. And the code upgrade with the modulars, $51 million for 10 years. New construction, $50.7 million for 20 years. The 10 years is simply because the code upgrade does not solve the educational needs of the district. The school building would still be too small, and even after we do code upgrades, it may even be smaller because the elevator would take classroom space up. The restrooms that need to be handicap accessible would take classroom space away. So not only do we not meet the educational needs, we actually have a smaller building to deal with. First year tax impact of those upgrades, $1,494 for 10 years. First year impact, $719 on that 20-year bond. Difference of $775. First year, worst year, both cases. The need for the new facility does not go away. So if we do this code upgrade, bond for 10 years, we probably would be faced with another debt exclusion for a new school right after that for 20 years at around $161 million to build that school. So we're looking at potentially, if the timing works out well, if you want to call this well, 30 years of debt exclusion overrides hitting the taxpayer. And ending on that lovely note, the town does offer tax assistance programs. There's 9 programs listed. More information is available on the Board of Assessors website and the Elder and Human Services Department page. And the staff at both departments would be happy to assist any resident who is looking for further information to see if they qualify for these programs. That's the presentation. I'll open it up for questions. I went through it pretty fast. Questions, discussion points between the boards? Please.
I have a question. How do you predict the contribution of the debt exclusion stabilization fund over the next 20 years? How sure can you be that it'll be 14% of the debt that's covered?
So that was based on what we went through on Super Saturday, on that estimates for free cash moving forward. So if we're able to sustain a level of free cash over the period, we can contribute and still fund our capital plan that we have. If free cash suffers, then that could possibly suffer here, or some piece of capital may suffer. Based on what we know, and we'll, like we said back in February, Matthew, we look at this each year and see what we can do.
I guess, but all that being considered, we haven't even talked about 550 King Street. We're not going to, and how that's going to contribute to this. Just this has come a long way since the last time we were in this meeting. Or last time this group was together. We were looking at almost $175 a month to a tax bill at that time when we first got this presentation. I know that's what a lot of people took home with them and that watched this as well. And to get it down to $50 a month, basically, is where we're at now for the average tax bill, it's something that I think most people can budget for. 175 people that are on very tight budgets. It was hard. I think it was hard for even the select board members trying to, how do you sell that? It's a lot harder to sell. This is a much easier to sell to me, and I think this is the town, the committees have done a fantastic job of getting this number to something that's manageable. To a community that the first thing you look for when you're going to move. Right now, I'm moving to another town. If I have children, I'm looking at education and safety. And those are the two things that I think the select board and other boards have to consider. And this is one of those things. There's a cost to educating our children, and we've put a lot of work into this. And down to $50 a month to the average tax bill, I think is a huge win for the town. And I would urge people to get this message out. Everybody in this room, get it out as much as we can, because I ran into, I had a veterans breakfast over here the other day, a couple weeks ago, and an individual came up to me and said, are you actually gonna push this school on us for $2,000, to our tax bill a year? There's still people out there that's the message, and we have to really drill down on this, start talking about it more, even in all of our meetings. So, but thank you for this. This is a great presentation.
I think one of the things, Gary, that I know that the Select Board and Finance Committee and School Committee, when we got together and we looked at that debt exclusion policy, we kind of also all made a commitment that we would do what we could to limit that tax impact to the residents. And I think putting $17 million toward this project
Huge.
is really huge.
Steve, is there any, similar to Mark's question, Matt's question, is there any debt exclusion, is there any free cash servicing debt exclusion now with any of the projects that we have in town that's gonna expire during this one, so that you can be sure that we're gonna be able, like, we could shift that money to this project that allows us to maintain that 14% that's budgeted?
So we utilize our debt exclusion stabilization account right now for the middle school and for Russell Street debt.
Because they're gonna
And
roll
we
off.
have all that programmed in, Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, that I mentioned Russell Street, for example, has 5 years left. There's only 2 years of impact to the taxpayer. Last 3 are gonna be totally covered through the debt exclusion stabilization account. If you remember back when our two boards met in February, we went through and we isolated those funds. So we know that's gonna happen. The amount that we put through to this project is over and above that. And again, it's all predicated on us maintaining that free cash level, which we've been able to do now for at least 10 years. So I'm
Okay.
kind of optimistic that we can do it. And we weren't really aggressive on the assumptions that we made. If you remember back to that meeting, I think we estimated like $4 million new, and we were averaging like $7 or $8 million over that time period. So I think it's doable. Can we up that amount? Absolutely.
Right.
Can we guarantee it? No.
I think, maybe that's my question, is if you think it's doable, like your first year, worst year, doomsday, it could cost this much, and then here we are, now it's $50 a month, right? So if we're showing 14, is that the worst case scenario we think the town's gonna cover? It potentially could be much better than that? Potentially?
Potentially. I can't
Can't guarantee it, but
guarantee
there's a
it. Again,
possibility.
we're gonna look at it every single year
Yeah.
and put what we can. And the contribution from the school department towards stabilization, and if we continue that going forward, to put money aside into that debt exclusion stabilization account, it just makes that pile bigger, that's all.
A couple questions. Over the year, we've asked the school committee if they would need any additional funding to maintain the school building during the 5 years it would take for the project to be completed. And what we've heard from the school committee is no. no need for any additional funds during the upcoming 5 years. So my first question is that still true, or are, I'm just wondering if we get, 2 years from now, the school says, well, gosh, the building is still 3 years out, we need this extra fix, that extra fix. Is the school department still saying no extra out-of-band costs needed?
We don't plan on throwing any money at Shaker Lane if this project were to pass, cause that would be dollars poorly spent. You showed a list of 7 catastrophe things that could happen, so if the boilers go, we have to replace them, it would be unfortunate. But no, there's nothing planned, there's no major expense associated with maintaining Shaker Lane to get us to a new school,
Planned,
if it passes.
but I think, isn't the answer kind of, how would we know? I mean, we have to keep these children in the school, right?
No, we do, so if,
Right, I was just wondering because, it's so cramped, just wanting to, I could imagine a universe where you say, well, for the next 5 years, we wanna have a couple of modular, classrooms, but okay, if that's off the table, that's fine. The related question is, Steve, what happens if one of those emergencies happen in the next 5 years? Because, we've been told that, oh my God, the building could fall apart at any moment. What if it does? What happens then? I mean, do we then get triggered into, we have to do the code enforcements and that whole scenario? I mean, I'd like to see a rundown of, it passes and then a year from now, the boiler fails, what all happens? Because if we've been told, yep, everything can fail, I wanna see the scenario if it fails.
right,
Chairman.
so you wanna answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, so if it does, when it does pass on November 1st at the ballot, then it's a matter of everything is in place. The entire code upgrade will not be triggered. We'd have to correct the issues that are before us and basically react to the particular situation that's necessary. But that won't trigger us having to do the entire building because of the funding that has been approved and it is going through the process to start building.
With all due respect, can we get a legal opinion that that's the case?
Sure. Happy to.
I mean, just prudence.
We're continuing to budget as well. It's not like we stopped budgeting our stabilizations and things like this, and obviously the FinCom emergency reserve fund and things like that also assist with these type of catastrophes, if you will.
Right, I'm just trying to, sorry,
It'll cover
I'm a
the
security
town.
guy,
Yeah, no,
I
it's
do
a-
one worst, I plan worst case,
Absolutely. Do I think something like that could happen? It could. I mean, we've been lucky, I think, in the past few years, that something hasn't happened there. Can they turn on the boilers this winter and something happen? Yeah, unfortunately.
Right, if it, and the gist of my question is, if something like that happens, do we just have to fix it? And I just want a legal guarantee that that doesn't trigger, oh my God, you have to do everything even though you're building a new building. That would sound incredibly stupid, but we are talking about government. So,
It's your part of it.
so,
And right now, we're lucky enough that the school department still has a healthy balance in their school choice. It's kind of like our stabilization fund. They could tap that to pay for some of these repairs. Go below that 10% limit that we had there and allow them over time to build that up by not spending it. But they possibly could cover some things using those funds now
absolutely.
without jeopardizing the plan we have in place moving forward.
Absolutely, I'm just looking at the catastrophe situation.
No, I hear you, Brian, really.
And along those lines, and sorry, I just have a couple more questions. A lot of the plan, and kudos to Steve, I don't know where you're pulling all these rabbits out of. I don't know what the hell hat you're pulling these rabbits out of, but we have so much of the scheduled various stabilization funds, reserve funds, and school choice funds sort of encumbered or plan to be encumbered for this project, to what degree does that tie our hands for other emergencies, other projects? Because it feels like, you know, we're looking at every conceivable seat cushion, and, you know, do we have any wiggle room?
No, so remember back Super Saturday, that afternoon, we did that spreadsheet process, basically. We funded the entire capital plan, 10-year capital plan, including roofs at the schools, right? 3 roofs. Fire engines, we did all that, we cover that right out of our free cash and our stabilization accounts. We had money set aside for this project. We had something set aside in case there was a DPW building that was done at some point in time. We actually put $500,000 away from that. We haven't heard anything about a DPW building after that fact, after February or something. I don't know when it's gonna be built, when it is, but we did our planning. We did what we should be doing and put some money aside. But we need to be reactionary too. So if something happens, we can pull from that pot and say, this is what we need to do. We ran into the renovations at Indian Hill. We're gonna pull it at town meeting, we're gonna pull our money out of our general stabilization account. That's what that money is for. We've never had to tap that before, but this was an emergency. So that's how we're gonna pay for it.
After the flood, or?
Yes.
And do we have any, thank you, and have we heard anything from Highway about when they plan for this building? Cause that was like another, 40 million, and it wasn't 40 million 30 years from now. I mean, it's just, I can imagine if in 2 years we went to the town and said, oh, by the way, we've got this other $40 million project. And we sort of knew about it and didn't tell you. I'm just, has Highway said anything?
We told, I stood up at town meeting last year at this time and told the town meeting that that DPW building was on the horizon at some point, and that we were putting money aside for it. So it's been out there, we talked about it at our budget meetings, it's been out there. I just don't know when, that's all.
Right. I'm just saying, it's unlikely that we're gonna be able to put
You have to
aside,
talk to,
if it's 40 million, it's unlikely
Yeah,
that we're gonna be able to
select board on
put
that
aside
Yeah.
40 million in the next couple of years, yeah.
The examination of location is still ongoing. That's the biggest obstacle at this point right now. And right now, as we look forward, we have it part of the FY31 budget, capital budget moving forward, and that's you'll see that in the quick budget message this evening. That's where we are. That's the status of that.
31, you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. That's what I got.
yes, sir.
Related question, so on your slide that shows the school building stabilization fund, you've got 2 contributions, fiscal year 27, fiscal year 28 of $1 million, regular contribution. I thought I remembered, just correct me if I'm wrong, that the town was gonna look to do something like 500,000 towards Shaker Lane and 500,000 towards this DPW project we're talking about. But does that start fiscal year 29?
Yes,
Okay, so for fiscal year 27 and 28.
so pre-construction,
be-
everything goes into capital stabilization.
Is there also
or
a
school building
DPW?
stabilization.
Is there also a DPW contribution planned for fiscal year 27 and 28?
No.
No, okay. Good. I guess.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, yes, sir.
I have two questions, I guess. One is the IBM buildings / HP buildings / deck buildings came off the tax rolls several years ago. That tax burden got shifted to the rest of us. And he's beginning to lease those buildings. So those should begin to come back onto the tax rolls. Is there any timing on that?
The square footage to count that value is what was occupied as of December 31st, 2024.
Well, and then at the end, 31st, of 25. But all that does is take taxes that we're all paying, most of us that live in town are paying now, and shifting it to that back where it should be on those buildings. So while it's not a huge number, it's a couple $100 a year, as I recall, when it all happened. So, I mean, that's a little bit of grace, if you will, over the next couple of years that should come back to the rest of the taxpayers in the town. Not a big number, but you know, in my bill, it was over $200 a year. So, okay,
But
The
if
other
it's
thing-
$600 a year,
I'm sorry?
if we're talking $600 a year for the average tax bill that the school's costing, that $200 becomes a lot bigger.
Yeah, I mean, net, it's help. The other thing on 550, I know we can't, define when we're gonna start seeing new growth revenue from that project. But those of us that have been around a while remember the last big project we had, the Point, and how all department heads lined up with the most egregious needs, and we funded most of those. I can, if the department heads haven't started pitching for huge needs over the next 5 or 6 years, I'd be very surprised. And I think that being very judicious about allowing incremental spending in the operating budget of the town and even the schools. If these 3 boards commit to trying to maintain fiscal responsibility, that should free up money that could go to stabilizations, whether it's for the school or whether it's for DPW or whatever the next project is. But I would just urge all 3 boards to sort of have that mindset that, yep, there's gonna be some money coming in, but if we can support the taxpayer and help cut their override spending by doing really good financial management at the department operating budget level, I think that could go a long way to helping sell this project.
That kind of goes in hand with what I've said at the past 2 FinCom presentations at town meeting. The last slide that I have, and I talk about the revenue stream coming into town, the future revenue stream. Just because we have it, doesn't mean we have to spend it. We need to spend it smart. And spending it smart is exactly what you just said. Not just spending it because a department requests it. Really looking at what needs to go in the operating budget, what we need to put aside to save the future, and what we can put toward these projects.
Right, and we've got a mortgage payment that we could help offset.
Yep.
So I really think that, these 3, the 2 boards control the money. And, we try to do the best we can to help allocate, but it really comes down to your 2 boards as to how judicious you are about allowing incremental spending.
It's that concern that was why, Justin and Steve and I sat down together on the financial management policies, was to codify what that prudence looks like and write it down so that everybody
Yep.
can refer to it and see how, what we all 3 of us understand as prudent use of our funds. And it's there in writing. And it's an expectation that we should be held to and that we fully expect to be held to.
And hopefully future boards abide by that.
Well, and
That's-
if they don't, they don't, but
And they answer to the residents, that's what they need to do.
Steve. So I had a couple concerns with the presentation that I emailed to a couple people here. First, I'd like to co-sign on Brian's request for us to get assurances that if this were to pass and then the boilers go, or something that costs us over 2.7 million, that we're not now having to fund both. I think that's important to communicate out, that there's no risk there. So I don't know what, if there's I think we should get that opinion set in stone. I had concerns about, more about the triggering of that code upgrade. But that, Steve did send me that triggering report, so that, I'm kind of satisfied with that. I think it's important that we get that out to the public as much as we can to, that was one of the questions I've been getting around town is, people I've spoken to, oh, that's a scare tactic, that's, that's not the case. They said it about town hall, that never happened. Luckily, we haven't had any catastrophic issues with town hall, or we didn't renovate it. I think that's how that topic came up with that, but I think it's important to get that out. And then the other thing that I've been hearing is if this doesn't pass, why does the school committee, why do the schools need to bring in mobile units to accommodate the schools when it's been, operating as it has for the last couple decades or whatever, where the population hasn't vastly increased? Why wouldn't they just keep going on as they are now? I understand it. Like, you don't have to sell me. I'm in favor of this project. Sometimes when I voice these concerns, I get a call the next day, why are you against this? I'm in favor of the project. But I think we need to do a better job explaining to the public, more than just educational plan. It doesn't fit our educational plan. I understand that, but I think we need to tease that out a little bit and explain, my 3 kids were all, my daughter she's 2 years removed now from Shaker Lane. All 3 of my kids were in the hallway by themselves at some point for, varying reasons. So I understand the space needs, as the educational plan, and it's a lot harder for you guys to do the work in a school that is as small as Shaker Lane currently is. But I think we really need to, do better in communicating what that is, what those needs are. I think that will go a long way in kind of explaining how important this is to our community.
I mean, I can add to that conversation tonight. Won't take up much time because I could spend an hour talking about this. The Shaker Lane School has been undersized ever since I assumed the superintendency 14 and a half years ago. If you recall what was happening back during that time, there wasn't a lot of money to do anything. We were cutting our budgets, we were offering our employees 0%. We were not in a good spot. As a superintendent, my job is to figure out what I need to do to make it work. The only glimmer of hope is that someday we would apply to the MSBA and be accepted into the building program. The current size of Shaker Lane School is around 62,000 square feet. Through the feasibility study and the schematic design, MSBA endorsed a building size of almost 98,000 square feet. So we're looking at 36,000 square feet of space that, for a school our size, that most schools would have that were built in the last 10, 15, 20 years. So even with the modulars, I recommended 11 modulars, that's 11,000 square feet. So I'm still short 25,000 square feet. But as like anybody else in this town, I'm not gonna waste money. All this is a Band-Aid solution. And I'm not the only one that controls what happens in education. The state has control in terms of special education services and how they're delivered. Servicing students in a hallway, on the stage, in closets, does not meet the regulations of the state. They haven't turned a blind eye, but I think they understand that we're trying to get a new school, and we've shown good faith. Our first application was 2017. The first year I was here, I wanted to send an application in to the MSBA as as a school committee, we talked, and there were too many other projects that were coming around, and we didn't want to compete with other projects that had a high level of need within this community. I mean, this is the right time now. And as your superintendent, I have to tell you, there's a lot of trepidation even having to wait 5 years. I appreciate what Brian said. There are no guarantees. The school is beyond its shelf life. It's a guessing game from this point on, every single day. So in December, if the boilers stop working, I have to figure out what to do. I can't just close school. I have to put in 180 days of student education prior to the end of June. That's the law. So I feel that we're not in a great situation now. I'm hoping that nothing happens, but this is a great opportunity for this community. $38 million in grant money, you're not gonna see that very often. And having known about the MSBA ever since I've been in this state, I think we were pretty generous in assuming that if we turn this opportunity down, that in 2027 they would even look at us. They've invested heavily with us since the onset of our acceptance. And if we don't move forward, I can't see them jumping up and down if we put another application in. There are too many other districts that have needs as great as ours. So I think we need to really understand that. I would love to say to you, we could keep going with that school the way it is, but I can't. It's not fair to our students, and it's not fair to our staff. And as a superintendent, we can do better. And I've had the good fortune of touring newer elementary schools. And I guarantee that if you had that opportunity to go to a newer school and come back to the Shaker Lane school, you would say, oh my goodness, we need to do something different. So, we take this very seriously, and nobody wants to spend money needlessly, but I see these options 2 and 3, the what ifs. I don't think that's a good investment, but we may not have a choice every year that we wait to do something. And I can give you any more information you want in that area.
That's a great answer.
Thank you.
I have a question on the use of the debt stabilization fund. We start off using 1.1 million in the first year, but we average 500,000 over the 20 years. So we're really dropping off. Is there a reason we're not more consistent on the amount we're using year over year?
So we put 500 in, so the pot is small in those first few years, basically. But you would try to use it so that you're not creating a tax spike in the second year. So if you, for example, if FY30, we're targeting what the payment would be, say, in FY35. So we use enough stabilization money to bring the payment down to that level.
So the plan is to put 500,000 a year into the fund?
Yes.
Okay, because that's not clear in the chart, right? This chart makes it look like in year 1 we're putting $1 million in, and then in year 20 we're putting 370 in, so we have like $700,000.
This is the usage of it. So there is a balance in that account, but again, you can only use so much that you can't create a spike in the next year.
So if we're putting in 500,000 a year, we have enough in that account in the first 5 years to actually spend 2 million more than that.
Steve? Yeah. This is not so much a question as it is a comment. From the beginning of this project, I've had 2 main set of objections. One being the cost and the other being the process. And to my great surprise, I feel moved on the cost. The process still really bothers me. That you basically lost my vote. You may have gotten it back tonight, but you basically lost my vote on that first Wednesday meeting where we, for the first time ever, saw the cost and were told, no, you can't ask any questions, it's too late. No, you can't make any changes, it's too late. You told us all on a Wednesday your options are 110, 112, 114 million dollars. And by the way, we're gonna submit to the state on Friday, so it's too late to do anything. I think the study committee, I think the team that looked at the design of possibilities failed the town. Harsh, but I think that's how I feel. I think that there are other options that could have been looked at that weren't looked at. And it bothers me that we're given no choice whatsoever on the largest project the town has ever done. And I've had arguments with several members of the select board over the weekend about, should one stand on principle of this is a terrible way to design a project? And I don't know, maybe I'm swayed. But I want some assurance that that's not gonna happen again, because I feel like I don't think we were treated fairly. And I think there are other options that could have been looked at and should have been looked at. So, there's no question in there,
No,
just to say.
let me try to explain what happened back then. And Mary Lee and Mark, please jump in.
Sure.
If I say wrong. Mentioned tonight, you won money from the MSBA, you play by their rules. And in that time period, if I'm remembering correctly, there was a time crunch between when the selection was done, when we had to submit to the MSBA, and when we were getting estimates from the estimator. We had like 2 or 3 days. So I know back then you were talking about that we didn't get the estimates out in time to the boards in front. And I told you, I didn't see them till that afternoon.
Yeah, I know.
Because that's when they came out. And we had to submit something, and just a couple of days later, if I recall. As far as the process goes and what was selected, correct me again if I'm wrong, there was 5 or 6 different iterations that we had to choose from. And the committee, for right or for wrong, who was empowered to make those choices, went through the process and selected that construction site. As I was talking to Karen just yesterday and said, I went into this process myself saying, Russell Street, this is it. It's gonna go there. There's no other alternative in my mind, because that would make so much more sense than putting it separate from everything else. You consolidate everything, you have better control of the bus routes, it's gonna save money in the long run. And I saw what Mary Lee put together to say, it really doesn't work at the Russell Street campus. And I changed my mind because of what I saw. And I'm sorry that all of the members of the boards didn't see that. But again, we were under the time constraint to get that information to the MSBA in our selection. And the board was basically empowered to make that decision. I'm sorry if it doesn't answer your question, but that's what happened.
Yep.
I was disappointed myself, but that's what happened.
Yep.
Am I?
Yeah, that's correct. There's you hear us talk all the time and for other presentations about the amount of modules that we have to go through with the MSBA. We're up to 9 now. We just passed up schematic design as module number 4. Before that, the 3 previous modules had us do preliminary design reports, preliminary schematic reports. All of these things have a certain amount of time to be done. The matrices that were put together, the rankings for code upgrade, addition, renovation, new construction, the requirements of the MSBA, we had to hit every one of those, and there are a couple of iterations of each one of those that we went through with the committee on multiple occasions. And at every building committee meeting, those things were presented, and all that information has been put on the website. So there was an extensive amount of work that Studio G put in to identify all these things and then work with the committee to rank them for the best sort of economic, educational planning project that we could come up with. And that was the whole process. So you're correct, but each one of those modules have a time constraint to them. And if we kept going back and forth on 6 different options, it's like tick, 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 the decision has to be made. And then you have to present to the MSBA and they have to tell you if they're gonna accept that decision or not. Which luckily, every stage of the module that we passed, they accepted what we were doing and supported what we were doing.
I think I'd just like to add too, as part of the design select subcommittee that worked on picking the different options, there were criterias for each option that we evaluated. So it wasn't just pick the one you like, we looked at all of the tick marks and went through each set of questions for every design option. So I thought it was a very extensive process that the design select subcommittee went through as underneath the Shaker Lane building project.
And I totally agree with you that that first joint meeting that we had back in 103 was kind of a disaster. I admit to that. I think in our committee meetings, when we have a decision that we've made or we hear something from the MSBA, I'm the vocal one that says we need to get the joint committees together to tell the select, before we make anything else public, we need to tell the boards. And hopefully the process has gotten better going forward with this. And I don't see, out of your question, your comment, was you don't want to see that happen any further. I don't see it happening, that major things are done without the boards getting that information out to not only these boards, but to the public.
At the very beginning of the process, what was there, 72 sites?
Almost
60
57 or something.
57 sites we were asked to look at in the town as a possibility to put a school. Very quickly, that got weeded down to 3 or 4, and then those were eliminated based on size, location, transportation, utilities, like all these things that came into play. So that was something from the very beginning that we looked townwide to see Russell Street included, all of those things to see if that could be a possibility for a school.
I'll just add that part of why the MSBA invests so heavily in the feasibility portion of it is because the best solution is very often not the initially obvious solution. And so you really have to explore that and test a few different things to really make sure you're getting what you need.
And I'll just observe that if schools now cost 110 or 160 million, we're continuing with having 4 buildings instead of possibly having 3, given some other options that were rejected. So, I mean, I think we will be back here next time one of our other schools' buildings needs work. I said my piece. Carry on.
Just to back up what Brian's saying here, I was also disappointed in that initial meeting. And I think if there's any more of these big decisions, we need to make sure that there's time for a public vetting before the decision is made, so that everyone in this room and the general public knows what's going on before we come up with a decision, and not making a decision with our backs to the wall and saying, we have to make a decision right now, or this is what the committee decided, without the public input, because it's a bad look.
I mean, we charged the committee with something and they performed that duty. Now, I was with you when we left that meeting, and I had the same concerns you did. And it was one of those that really, we left the meeting saying that really wasn't a choice. We were guided to the site that we're going to have. So even though we have to present three selections, 3 choices, I think to MSBA, we were pretty much told there's one site and one place this will actually work. And I think that's what rubbed us wrong. We didn't get to have enough discussion. We weren't in some of the meetings, obviously, with Steve, you were involved with. What changed your mind? But I remember when it changed, I didn't know why. You just all of a sudden had flipped.
Mm-hmm.
So now you kind of explained that a little bit. So if there's anything we can do better, sure. Once the subcommittee, we have to have these committees. We don't want to be burdened down with all of the stuff they had to go through. But I was able, I like to say I'm at peace with it, because sure, I would love to have the buildings all in one place. We said that, but I was at peace with, they did their job, they did their work, and I was able to accept that they're doing the right thing for the town at this point. So that's a hard thing to do, because everybody wants an opinion. You're not going to please everybody for certain, but The more I understood it, the more I looked into it, I understand why they made that decision. I just wish we had more of an input up front, and that clarity could have happened much earlier. You know, we wouldn't have had to leave the room saying, what the heck just happened?
So I know the MSBA dictates the size of a building that we need to do, right? Or we need to design, is that correct?
Well, the MSBA does is we can build the building as big as we want, but they're only gonna fund a certain square footage.
Yeah, so I'm looking to
that's how
go,
they
looking to
control
go the other way.
Uh-huh.
Versus, or when you compare the design to what, and I don't know if you can answer this, but what the minimum the MSBA would approve, are you able to say how much bigger the design is versus the minimum?
Under 5,000 square feet.
So
So we.
it's about
we took our-
5,000 square feet
yeah.
bigger than we wanna get a grant if it was,
Right, we took our marching orders very seriously, and we all sat down and said, this school has to be as close as we can get it to the MSBA guidelines and parameters, and that's what we did. And the MSBA wants to fund as many projects as they can, so they're gonna be pretty conservative on what they fund. So it's not uncommon for new schools to end up with 20,000 square feet over what the MSBA would fund, because they're trying to make that money go as far as they can. I mean, it was a very interesting process, because we had to justify every square foot of that school. And special ed programming, for those of you that aren't in education, does vary from school to school, depends on your student demographics, and we fought hard to make sure that they would reimburse our special education space based on our needs. So it's been an interesting process, but tedious at times.
I just wanted to confirm my understanding that the MSBA would not have participated in this project with us if we had combined Shaker Lane and Russell Street. Is that correct? Like, we went to them and said, this is the school where we are replacing. If we had gone and said, we're going to replace this and Russell Street and put them together, would the MSBA have participated?
Oh, we didn't. We looked at building a school beside Russell Street. And I'm gonna ask you a question. I mean, the audience a question here. When I look at suburban education or rural education, do you really want a K-5 school with 900 students in it? That's the size of a school in some cities. In fact, I'm familiar with cities that have hundreds of thousands of people, and they prefer a neighborhood K-8 school under 400 students. So the history of this community, from what I understand, I didn't grow up in town, but you had the choice when you were looking at the middle school, high school. We already had a 6 to 12 school, and the community chose to build 2 schools, probably for the reason they wanted fewer students in those schools. So to me, as a superintendent, that kind of set the tone that why would this community want a school with 900 kids in it, especially younger kids, when you didn't exercise that option for your 6 to 12 school?
I could add to that from the MSBA side, because the process is so selective and competitive, getting a school into that pipeline, each district has to be really strategic about what they say in the statement of interest. And so if you are proposing that you want to take a school that's in pretty good shape and is newer than a lot of the other schools in the state that are also going up to the MSBA, the odds of that being accepted is pretty low. But looking at the state of Shaker Lane, that building compared to the other schools in the state that are also applying to the MSBA, it's pretty equal in need. So it had a much higher chance of being accepted into the program as just Shaker Lane and not necessarily a combination or an addition to one of the other existing schools.
Thank you. Because as we talk to our community, I mean, I don't want to continually go, okay, I mean, we're doing a lot of these things because we needed to be part of this program, but we did a lot of these things because we needed to be a part of this program. And you know, I hear the pushback and I hear that I wish we had done this and this, But I listened to the committee and how they made choices, and a lot of them were made to keep us in this program and to help cut the costs for the people of the town. And, you know, like, I think that's an answer. I'm looking for a way to say that it's more, so it'll be more palatable to the people in town meeting, but it's just the way it was.
Steve, thank you for the presentation. The information is so much rosier than when we first saw it, right? When we have a financial presentation, I think it's easy for everybody to nitpick and talk numbers and what it coulda, shoulda. I mean, this is an absolute no-brainer for the town. This is a wonderful opportunity. The work that was put together in the educational plan has been talked about at the MSBA as being like a flagship type program. Look at Littleton's submission. We want other school districts to do this. The plans that we've seen, like we've gotten to see the layouts and the schematic design and all this good stuff. The neighborhooding of it all. I mean, it's going to be truly like one of our gem assets in town, right? Like if you were ever thinking of selling your house, like we have a brand new K-2 school, or people want to move in, it's people don't talk like, oh, we got a brand new fire truck. Like, no, we have a brand new school in town.
Yeah, stay off the
So there, and like you were saying, we're 10 years into this thing, right? And what do we have to show for it? You know, we have like a slide presentation. In a couple years, hopefully we'll be able to show shovels in the ground and this beautiful brand new building. We should all be, I get that everyone has their opinion and woulda, coulda, shoulda, but we should all be really excited about this and chatting with our peers and our constituents to create some energy, because this is a gift. It's $38 million, and it's not that we didn't earn it, because 5 years worth of work has gone into it to get us to this point. And it's a lot of people around this table, and it's a lot of folks that perhaps aren't around the table tonight. But the alternative is a disaster. I mean, if I'm gonna go to town meeting and vote with my wallet, I don't want us putting another penny into Shaker Lane. I want us moving forward with a 50-year solution where essentially we're only responsible for half the price tag. Because the town's in really good shape now, thanks to the Finance Committee and the Select Board. And we're receiving a $38 million grant from the state due to the work on the educational plan, owner's project manager and architect. There's like minimal square footage in this building that's not reimbursable. So we should all be proud around this table about the project. And for those that are gonna vote with their wallet, which I believe most people do, the choice is obvious. We have to invest in a new building here.
Well said, Justin.
So we can continue to nitpick, but I think it was important that we just talk about how proud I am of this project, and I hope that others feel that way as well.
You're here. Good.
Thank you.
Well, you've got 8 weeks to sell the town on it, because if the vote was tomorrow, it would go down. So.
How many votes do you have, Fred?
I'm serious, I'm serious.
Perhaps, I don't know if it was on the agenda, but maybe I thought it was. Are we talking about town meeting and how the presentation's gonna go and who's saying what and that, are we covering that this evening or no? No.
Wasn't planned, but
Okay.
preliminary, we could talk about it. We have all the boards here. Some of this needs to be in there.
Absolutely.
So I would say, first off, that this is gonna be early on in the agenda. We will not be voting on Shaker Lane at midnight. It'll be first or second after, bills of prior years, maybe, and
So
whatever the
after
consent agenda.
The
Yeah.
first item to be discussed will be Shaker Lane. Terrific.
Maybe bills of prior years first.
But the
Because you want
hard
people to
work
be able
is
to get in the
between
door.
now and town meeting, it's not
Because you
a
want
town
people to
meeting.
be able to get in the door, because I think we all assume heavy attendance.
Right, and yeah, exactly. That'll give people a little time to trickle in.
Right.
So we're in September now. We are planning on another community forum for the next few weeks. I think we have another open house planned as well. That'll be in September. We can talk about possibly doing another forum in October, as the vote's towards the end of the month, 28th and the 1st, to continue to get the word out there now that we have concrete numbers and we can share these. And I concur, the presentation's phenomenal. It really gets to the heart of where everything needs to go. So we'll be working with the team to determine, there's been a suggestion made that maybe the next forum could be on a Saturday as opposed to a weekday. We did them in person, we did them virtually, we didn't get a great turnout. But some think that maybe it's a weekend and we combine it with something else to draw some more people in to get the word out some more. So those are the things that we'll be focusing on now that we've got the board of directors approving this project. And congratulations to everybody, it's a huge milestone to get to this point. So I think we got a long way to go, there's still a lot of work to be done. But I think we have a good opportunity coming up in front of us to get the word out. We have a couple months to really get it out there and get people's, educate as many people as we can on what the cost is gonna be. And then hopefully that'll be turned into a positive vote in the end of October and November, and then we proceed on to the next stages.
And if each one of us in this room talked to 10 people with the information that you had, we just need to keep doing that. I mean, we've had numerous forums and an attendance of 10 to 15 people. It's not as if we're not offering ample opportunities to involve our community in this project. I know people are busy, so we have to figure out how to reach them. Yes, for Littleton's doing an excellent job, and they're going to be knocking on doors as well, talking to people. But again, when you have this good information, this is great news. Go out and talk to your neighbors. When you're all having coffee, talk to people. That's the best way to get the word out.
Are those forums being recorded
Yes, they are.
Yes.
or on LCTV?
Yes.
I think prime time for getting the word out is after October 22nd. Seriously.
I'm sorry.
I think the prime time for getting the word out about this is the 5 days before town meeting. That is when people begin to pay attention to these issues. I'm not joking, like.
Interesting.
Once the book shows up in the mail.
Yeah, once someone says, oh, do you know that we're building a $100 million school? Like 80% of people don't know that yet, and they're gonna find out when the mailer hits. So that's when the education should be there to counter all of the misinformation that's gonna be posted on social media.
I would disagree with that, respectfully. I think we need to start communicating now and start correcting that misinformation now, or else, because it snowballs and people run with it, and then, 5 days before the vote, I think it's gonna be too late.
Well, yeah, we should do both, but. I'm
So do
just
we all
saying.
have yard signs? I know where we can get them.
And if you
Not
find a
kidding.
group of people that need more information, just contact us. We're more than happy to go out and talk to them.
Fred, I'm curious because you happen to think that if the vote was tomorrow, it fails. What do those people not understand about what we covered tonight? They want to spend $44 million on code upgrades and have a school that's insufficient to provide the educational plan that we intend.
Well, two things. They don't wanna spend $1,000 more a year, which is basically the number that's been thrown around.
Right.
And the second thing is, I think, this is basically a general agita around town with town government. Like it or not.
Sure.
And that, I think, is what's out there. So I think, what Kelly has said about the inadequacy, what you also said, the inadequacy of the building, I think is a prime point. It's been good enough for my kids, why isn't it good enough now? Well, come take a walk through and see. The place is, the place needs to be replaced. It's as simple as that. But people don't understand that. It's like the vote that came down on Shattuck Street, the building, the emotional vote that knocked that really good opportunity for the town to get some deeply affordable senior housing has been backburnered. Now, hopefully we'll be able to figure out how to bring it back and get people to vote for it. But that was a real positive opportunity for the town. So I think there's a visceral emotion out there that needs to be turned around. And you don't have a hell of a lot of time to do it.
I was curious about, so I understand both of your points, and I wanna ask a follow-up question on the first point, right? I'm gonna vote with my wallet. The only thing I can afford is nothing. So, if I'm a citizen of that opinion. So I vote no, and one of the 7 things happens, and we have to start putting some money into Shaker Lane, and I was thinking this through. So all of a sudden, now we're back at town meeting, I would imagine, for a debt exclusion override for major renovations and code upgrades for Shaker Lane. And we still vote no, right? Because I can't afford anything. So the only alternative is we're gonna basically nearly bankrupt the town on trying to pay for this stuff out of cash flow. Would that be correct? We'd be looking at cutting services and layoffs and all this stuff because we would I mean, that's the alternative,
There's a
right?
need to educate the kids.
Yes.
Yes.
So there is essentially no way to spend zero on Shaker Lane. We have to spend something, as you do on all buildings, you have to maintain
You're
them.
preaching to the choir.
Right, but if you're talking to these people.
What you need to do is preach to the masses.
Well, you
They're
preach to the
ones that-
voters, the
they're
masses,
ones that are gonna vote. So I don't know if you have monthly newsletters that go out to all the parents. If you've got whatever, I mean, but and I may be wrong, you know,
I think it's just abundantly clear at this point in time that there's a poor choice, there's a poor way to spend your money on Shaker Lane and there's a brilliant way to spend your money on Shaker Lane. And, I think it's quite obvious that we should move forward with the new school, and I hope the voters feel the same way. Anyone that's in attendance that evening that's paying attention, I would think the vast majority of them would vote for a new building, unless they're walking in with a preconceived notion that I'm not gonna spend it and they've got earmuffs on that night.
don't
But the
forget,
thing is
what you've got is a two-step process. You can pack town meeting. You can convince the 300 or 400 people that show up at town meeting, or 500 people that show up at town meeting. And then you'll have 1,000 people vote on Saturday. And that's where the angry voters come out. So if you're thinking that coming to town meeting and convincing town meeting to vote for it is what you need to do, I maintain that the Saturday vote those are the people that you need to really focus on. And you've gotta get the word out to the masses that Kelly said about the school and what you said about, you got 2 choices. Spend $50 million on a rebuild or spend $50 million on a new school. Basically, that's the choice, right? So I was the lone wolf trying to tell people what was gonna happen on Shattuck Street. I'm telling you.
I just wanna clarify too, it's not a renovation or a rebuild, if the vote is no. It's a code upgrade. So the building as is, doesn't change. I mean, as he said, it gets smaller, an elevator goes in, a bathroom goes in, you're not rebuilding or renovating, you're just making it safe per the state.
Right, but
So we screw it up all the time, it's very hard, easy to say, well, you can just renovate for 40, no, it's not a renovation, it's just bringing it up to public safety codes, and you're gonna end up losing space doing that. And it's gonna cost you maybe as much as it's gonna cost you to bond a new building, so.
Right, but you've got to communicate to the masses.
Yes.
And not the 12 people that show up to your communication meetings.
Right, and
So, really,
it's
difficult.
on Fred's point, because if you get up at town meeting and say, this is a slam dunk, this is obvious, you're stupid if you don't vote for this, not that you would say it that way. Town meeting doesn't respond to that. Town meeting has consistently shown us that when we've said to them, you must do X, they say, sorry, we're on camera, they say no, they say politely, no way. And you're saying it's obvious because because you're deep into it. On my little street, we've got 3 or 4 new families who've just come into town, and they've said to me, we just make our mortgage to buy this house in Littleton. What is this about a tax increase? You know, they're at that emotional level. And so if we start talking about square footages and elevators and stuff, I don't care. It has to be emotional, it has to be, I just caution you against saying, you gotta do this, it's a slam dunk.
So I
because the
think
town
Mark
doesn't react to
Montanari was
that.
gonna do the presentation.
That was a good one, Chuck.
We needed some levity, right?
I can tell you what sold it for me, basically. I haven't been in that building for 10 years, say, except for maybe the cafeteria every once in a while. Haven't been in. And I was lucky enough to have a tour of the school. Michelle did a tour of the school while school was in session.
Yep.
And I wasn't expecting kids being taught in the hallways, one-on-one with a teacher assistant sitting there. How could that be? I'll tell you the truth, I was embarrassed for Littleton walking through that school. We're better than that. We have to be able to teach our kids better than this. And that sold it for me right then and there.
I'd just like to point out that we didn't have good numbers until tonight, right? So to a certain extent, we should be pretty glad that the big campaign to inform the voters is starting tonight.
We're 60 days out.
Yep,
Yeah.
we've got plenty of time, we've got final numbers, it's not a question of, well, yeah, for now, we think it's this, but we'll let you know, this is it, we've got it. And we've got a plan that we're proud of, we've got a plan that underwent multiple revisions by us, right? Sometimes I think when I'm talking to folks, they forget that I pay taxes too. And it's easy to forget, to think that, folks forget that or don't forget that, but they do. And so I think, to Steve's point, this project is what makes Littleton Littleton. This is a lot of people working really hard, working really smart, and coming up with a really good solution to a really big problem. And now we just need to get the word out. I think it's important that we note that it's a 2/3 vote. When I've been talking to folks, and they say, "Oh yeah, I'll be there." What about the other person in your house who's of voting age? You guys both need to be there. So we just need to encourage voting plans and keep talking.
I think jumping off of all of that, I think that, we've been doing outreach. To your point, we didn't have numbers until tonight, so we didn't want to run with anything until we had official numbers and everything was kind of crystallized. And I agree with what Matt said, right? It's the last five days, but that's kind of getting out the vote push. You gotta already know who's gonna be voting and what's gonna happen in advance of that. So it's the next X number of weekends, door knocking, getting the word out. And I think also with other things I've seen in town, I haven't been here very long, I haven't seen signs on all these corners and, so yes, there's only X number of people in communications meeting, but there's a lot of signs going up and there's a lot of reason to feel like people are hearing some of the news and hopefully we'll continue to spread it.
Anything else from the board?
Show up at some of these meetings like I did, veterans breakfasts. If I had this information there, it would have just been that much more I could have offered. I think between now, there's a lot of little meetings that take place with the barbecues. I know there's a police fire barbecue coming up, next week. Things like that where a lot of people come out. Everyone likes free food. So those are the things where you can put all the rumors to rest and we just start talking positive about this because it is positive. was a little tarnished when you got hit with the 100 million and it's gonna cost $2,000 a year. But now we have a good story. These committees have put a lot of work into this. We've got this number down to something that's palatable. Let's do something great for Littleton. And we have to press this. And it's all of us. We don't, and it sounds like we're pointing fingers at people, saying, why didn't we? It's not that now. We're on full charge ahead. I think everybody in this room needs to hit the people they know, people they don't know, get into the meetings, get into the barbecues, your neighbors, and push this, because we're not just gonna pass this with K-2 parents showing up. So that's where we've gotta be at. If we're not all sold in this room, then, sit down with the salespeople in this room and get sold, whatever it takes.
Anything else from the boards? We can open it up to public comment. All set? Mr. Sanders.
Madam Chair, Chairman of the School Committee, the FinCom, and the Superintendent of School, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George A. Sanders, and I live at 672 Great Road in Littleton here. We can all talk about coulda and shoulda. I believe that if you had concerns back when, you should step up and spoke up. It's sort of kind of late now to talk about shoulda and coulda. One of the things I think that we're blessed with is that I asked the superintendent of schools, just back maybe a month and a half ago, how much did he think that the state was going to give us? He said like 38. Well, you was right. And I'm thankful that the state has stepped up and saw fit to give more money to Littleton. We should be pleased with that tonight here. It's not easy getting money from the state. And thank God we're not dependent on the federal government to give us any money. Because I think we'll be somewhat at a loss looking for money from the federal government with regard to the school. Someone made the comment with regards to the Shaker Lane School. And I can tell you from experience, when I was in Fitchburg, I went to the federal government and to the state government in education with regards to how children was being treated in a school where they had one sink. As a matter of fact, I went to, at the time, President Carter was the president of the United States. And I asked him, I said, would you want Amy to be in that school? We're fortunate here in Littleton that no parent or no citizen went to the federal government and pointed out what Littleton was doing to the special need kids in this town, in the school system. Because I can assure you that the feds would have been in here and the state would have been in here, and they would have made you correct the fact of teaching in the hall and converting closets into teaching space. They do not mess around, even though I'll say right now, we got some people in the education department, not quite where I think they ought to be. But I can tell you, over the years, the education system has been there about educating kids, and more especially those that are in special need. It isn't often that we can come together and collaborate about doing something. I'm very thankful that I spoke to the chair and he invited me here tonight to hear what was going to be said. I'm glad I came. Because it was an education that every citizen here in Littleton needs to understand and needs to know and needs to support a need that this town has. Because like I said earlier, I sent a letter to the select board members and to the finance committee, and with copy furnished to the school superintendent and the clerk of the town of Littleton. There's no question. Shaker Lane passed the time that school had lived and provided service to our children where it needed to be replaced. There's no question about that. But it kept sliding, kept sliding, kept sliding. And the school committee, along with the school department, they knew what was going on down there in that school. Like a lot of citizens didn't know what was going on down there in the school. And I've been out in the community here collecting signatures on a petition that the select board is going to receive. And I've heard people talk about, I went to Shaker Lane when it was just listed as, I think the lady said it was kindergarten, and she came up to Shattuck Street, and in the 6th grade, she went back to Shaker Lane. There's a lot of people who are saying, yes, we need to build a new school. And I think at this point in time, where we have this, it's not going to get better. If we delay, it's going to cost us. And I am saying to the citizen here in Littleton tonight, a 2/3 vote is not an easy vote to get. But I encourage you to think smart. It's better for us to pay the amount that we're going to have to pay now than to reach in our pocket and pull out more later. It is going to cost us to build a new school. We know that. We know that the town cannot handle that amount of debt without going outside of the levy. And something that I've been telling people all along with my Talk Straight TV program is that you have to understand what is going on. A lot of people do not understand the budget process. They do not understand a lot of things in this town. But one thing they do understand, they're gonna pay taxes as long as they're alive, if they own property, and when they die, they're still gonna pay taxes. This is an opportunity for us as citizens here in Littleton to come forth, pass the building of this new school, take it to the election, which requires just a majority to pass it. We know, and I appreciate the fact that the the group of people around the tables here tonight put forward for effort to try to help taxpayers with the debt exclusion amount that they're going to have to pay for the Shaker Lane School. It was the chairman of FinCom that sent information to me, and I went on the web and started checking and looking and seeing what was happening. That's why I sent in my August 28 letter and it said that I stand to be corrected. Because I said you didn't care about what the taxpayers was going to have to pay. I was wrong. When I found out you was going to put extra money to help pay down the debt, of course I had to step back and correct myself. And ask you all to forgive me. It takes a good person to recognize that if they made a mistake, they come forth and they correct it. People have respect for you. You have credibility. And I intend to talk, as I told you, to get behind on this school. I'll be taping the program tomorrow. And I went and I had the bank to run the amount of money once I found out, because I found out that the state had given Littleton 38 million, and I subtracted from that 98.1, and that left 60 million, and 11 million doing construction left 49.1. And I said, what would it be for 5% for 20 years? It came out to be 28.6 million at 5%. So I added that on to the 49.1. These are rough figures that I was doing. Came out to be 77.7 with the interest. So I asked him, I said, what would be the yearly annual amount that you have to pay on that? It came out to 3.8 million. Those were just rough figures that I had with regards to this. I think the thing that we need to do is that you must always be fair and truthful with taxpayers. I think it's the most important thing that we do in telling them the truth as to what is what. And I think you put out good information here tonight in telling the citizen where we are today with the amount of debt that we're talking about that the town is going to inherit with building a new Shaker Lane School. I don't think that we can afford not to pass this at the town meeting on October the 28th. And I'll tell you why. It's not going to get any cheaper. If we do not take and go forth and pass this at the town meeting, we will regret if we don't. We need to do what is right by the children in this town. They have no one else to take care of them as far as the education goes, but the parents and our government and our school department and our teachers to educate them and give them the resources that they need so that they can be properly taught as pupils in our schools. We owe that to them. We must do what's right for the students here in the town of Littleton. Make no mistake about it. We are the adults. We need to stand up, and we need to be accounted, and we need to be responsible. Responsible adults and responsible parents to do what is right, whether you got a child in the school system or not. There are many in this town do not have children in the school system. That was a concern that they had, and I've always had a concern about taxpayers and seniors. I've always advocated for them because there's a tendency that politicians have a tendency to ask for the vote and then they don't see them anymore. Some people do not have the stamina to go forth and do. I do. I was outside collecting signatures on that petition that I'm going to submit. And I told the lady, I said, I'm doing it because you know why? We have many seniors that's going to fall in a tough situation with that. Although you mentioned about the programs that the town have that you can work on, but the state says you can only deduct a certain amount. And the program that we have right now, deducting on the taxes, is $1,500. So if we can lower the debt exclusion amount that taxpayers have to reach into their pockets and pay, it's going to help everybody across the board. It may be a little bit high starting, probably the first 4 or 5 years, but then as each year come along after, it's going to drop a little bit more. And hopefully, looking on the horizon, hopefully, don't know exactly what 550 King Street is going to come out to be up there, or 584, or 410. We know they said that there's houses going to go on 410. Don't know what's going to go on 584, but we do know there's a whole lot of things that's supposed to going to go in at 550 up there. And when I looked at that, I said, you know what? Down the road, hopefully if things go well, that the town will be able to do a little bit better in regard to the debt exclusion. Here's the thing that taxpayer needs to know. Some of you may know, some of you may not, as citizens here in the town of Littleton. Since IBM moved out at 550 up there, that was assessed at about $60 million when IBM was up there. And the town was collecting about $600 and some thousand a year taxes on that property up there. But under the state law of Massachusetts, a building like that became vacant, they had to redistribute. So they had industrial, commercial, and residential picked up the tab for the $600 and some thousand up there. So there are citizens that have been paying IBM bill up there. On the resident, it's been running probably about $125 that was added into your taxes. And I'm sure that there are people in this town that did not know that they was paying for IBM. But the good thing is, we're fortunate that we only got IBM and nobody else. I have a meeting with the chief successor office chief there to find out, because this year was a reevaluation for the town of Littleton. On a Prop 2.5, they do it 5 and 10 years. She received, I think, the report on the 29th of August. And she told me to check back with her. She gonna let me know if we're gonna have, or when it's gonna stop that we're gonna have to continue or stop paying the money for IBM. Maybe it's moved back up. She did not know, and she would have to look and tell me. So in addition to this, we are paying that amount of money, roughly $125 in our taxes for IBM up there. Hopefully, we won't have to pay this year. I'm praying that we don't. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to building a school. And I think you've done a good job dealing with the moving parts. What we need to do is do what we know we need to do. And that is to build a new Shaker Lane school. I'm going to do my best on my TV show to convey to the people why it is so imperative that they vote on the 28th of October to build a new Shaker Lane school. Everybody else should be telling the people out there why and what. Information I gave out on the petition that I am out there collecting signatures for, the people is just pleased to know that somebody is doing something. And they thank me. I thank the Lord most of all because He have kept me in this universe for 4 schools. And I'm hoping that He's going to keep me as long as He wants me, and I'm hoping that I will get the opportunity to see what will happen in terms of the school once it's built at Shaker Lane down there. I've been in Shaker Lane. All 3 of my children went through Shaker Lane. I haven't been down here on the tours because I don't need to go down there to know that there's a need for the school down there. I don't need to go down there. I don't need to see it. Because if I had known when that we had special ed kids down there, and I'm being very candid with you when I tell you this, I would have went to the state government and I would have went to the federal government on these cubby holes. Because that's not right. Because we can do better. And we're at the point now we need to do better. I thank you.
Anyone else?
Rob Brown's 25 Juniper Road. So I'll start by saying thank you to everybody because you're all putting in countless hours and many of you have been putting in years on this. And so I really thank you for that. And I've heard a lot of things tonight. A lot of it is kind of inconsistent, I think. I've done deep dives. I don't know how many months it's been now myself. But a lot of what's the wish could, it was all there. And it's all there before us for the last several months, but nobody's coming. Maybe 50 people on the Shaker Lane tours. I've been to all of them. Maybe 50 community info forums. Nobody's coming. They're not coming. I agree with Fred. If this goes to a vote tomorrow, it's dead. It's not that I disagree with you, Justin, but the people that I'm talking to, they're ticked off. And it's the same people that are going to talk at town meeting on October 28th that talked about the Shattuck. And they're going to talk, and they're going to vent, and they're angry. And I'll add a couple things I know it's offensive. They're angry about this building. They're angry about that building. And then we're confronting them with this. And this is, more or less, Brian, the way you said it, don't have much of a choice. It has to be done. But they're frustrated, and, you know, I could think of the woman, I'm not gonna name check her, but she said, I can't pay for my repairs on my house because I'm fixing yours. And she referenced these two at the last town meeting. So it really is tonight, Karen, I agree with you. These are the final numbers. We have them, thank goodness. They're great numbers to have. And I think people that are informed can make right decisions. But the people I'm talking with, they're not informed. They don't want to be informed. And they decided 10, 15, 20 years ago, Shaker Lane's good, probably, unlike George, they're probably good until they die. It's been good enough. Don't believe in this stuff. It's just routinely dismissed. And it can't be. I mean, if there's a change that I'd like to suggest, because it's there, but I don't think it's quite there the way I'd like to see it. We get to choose to get a 50 million, 50.5 bond, or we get to blow it. And then we get to do the upgrade for 51. And then 10 years later, we get to do the 161 less, you know, let's gross up what the MSBA will be. But it's basically decide. You're paying 50 million to do the code upgrade, you're right. Or, guess what? You vote no, you're angry, you get it out. You vote no, right. Except the building's gonna fail. It's been said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So it's gonna fail. So then what are we confronted with? We pay the 50 million because we've passed the no vote. So then we have to do the full code upgrade. We don't get to fix it the way Jim said, just that specific piece. I hope the legal opinion will come. But we pay the 51, and then we pay the equivalent of the 50.5 increased by the 10-year. I'm frustrated with so many things. Kate's here. I appreciate Park and Rec. I went and asked them to endorse the upcoming article, and they took a straw vote, and I expect Park and Rec to do it. But I've also been to 2 other committees, or I've spoken to one at Third Thursday, and they're refusing. They're like, not our mission. There are volunteers that in many cases you've appointed, and they're telling me, we like this part of it, but we shouldn't get involved with regard to a big decision like this. And I'm the only one that's there, talking to them. So you wanna join me at their upcoming meetings in the next week to 2 weeks, please join me, because I'm having a tough time moving them with regard to get off your, you know, your theoretical, don't have to take, you know, don't have to show where we are on the matter. We need them, and we need you. Jim, thank you. 3 months in a row, powerful messages in the newsletter. Others, messages exist, but it's not the same urgency that we hear here. We need to read that. We need to read it from each of you. We need, my opinion, this is, look, it's the same people that are here, same people that have been here. We should get ahead of this. You should get ahead of this town meeting. Like, hold public hearing. They do not, in my opinion, the folks I spoke, they don't wanna hear Mary Lee. They don't wanna hear you. They really don't. They wanna hear you folks. Because they think that somehow venting to you is what they seemingly enjoy to do at town meeting. So get it out well before. It's not the last 5 days. I'd love to agree with you, Matthew, but the people I speak with, they're hardcore. We have to change this. Gary mentioned the barbecue. There's no real venue. I've been to the one, you know, last year and so forth. How do we get at those little tables? You know, it was the legislators, you know, in this building a few weeks ago. How do we get in those small little groups? Because they don't want to hear it. Went to a COE meeting. They don't want to hear it. Didn't talk about it. Respected that group. But you're needed, whether it's on Friday morning, right here with regard to the breakfast and the time after. And it's gonna take, and thank God for Annalise, you know, we need her, but we need about 30 of them. And we don't have them. If you think we do, we don't. We have maybe, what, Sean? 6, 8, maximum, 6 to 8 people that are getting ready to go to war over this. It's not enough, and she's gonna be exhausted. So I encourage you to do everything that you can. I appreciate the podcast. I know I'm forgetting people. Thank you for 01460 and what you're doing. You know, thanks for bringing the people, getting the word out. But there's too many people that are getting off way too easy. And right now we're letting our residents get off way too easy to just show up at town meeting, do their vetting. Town meeting, that concerns me a lot. I've asked about the cafeteria, I know you're considering it and what you're gonna do. But the parts that I'm talking to in terms of young parents, I shared, some of you know. My daughter, her kids have never had a babysitter because grandparents, we're taking care of it. I've heard somebody that I really respect in this town that say there's no excuse for young parents to not be at town meeting. They can plan 2 months in advance, they can be there, they can get their babysitters. It's a very different world than that guy's generation. You don't leave your kids with anybody except for family. That's what they do. And they're going to school the next morning, they're going to work the next morning. So as much as it's gonna be the first or the second, article that's passed, it's too late. Those kids are already supposed to be in bed. And that's how the parents that I'm talking to, and I'm talking to a lot of people, talking to multiple generations. And there's just too many reasons to not show up and too many reasons to not do it. I mean, Market Basket, we've got what, 2 weeks that we get to show up at Market Basket? Those are the only tables that we're able to get? Yeah, 2 days. Yeah, excuse me, 2 dates, not 2 weeks. So the effort is incredible in the next, it's less than 8 weeks. It's unbelievable how much has to get out because they don't care. Or if they do care, they care to vote it down strongly because they're angry and they're frustrated with their property taxes. And so each and every one of you need to hear you in the newsletter. I know it's not routinely done in the broadcaster, but it gets mailed out to 700 senior homes. Get it in the broadcaster. Get before those groups. Need your help. I'm trying to share in different elements what I've been, hearing and working and talking with people. I wish it was better news. It should be better news. I couldn't agree more. It should be, good news, but there's too many people that have an axe to grind with regard to, you shouldn't have built it there. You should have built it someplace else. And it was all there. But just like the people aren't coming right now in the last several months, we weren't there 2 years ago when our voices could have been heard. Your voices could have been heard. If you had concerns, the process has been going on for 5 years. Thanks for your time. I do appreciate you.
Hey everybody, Annalise Tabor, 291 Goldsmith. I'm the chair of the Yes for Littleton Ballot Question Committee that is in support of Shaker Lane School. So we've been officially incorporated since June, and so we've been working since June. And basically the reason I formed this ballot question committee is because I went to that town meeting and I saw that Shattuck Street fireball, and it was like, okay, my eyes are open. This needs some work. This needs, there, like Rob said, there are a lot of people that are just sort of raging against the machine, and they need to, have their voices be heard, and that's not a great place to do it, but that's where people tend to do it because it's big and public. So I love the idea of having, smaller forums for people to get these things off their chest because it's not great to have that be at town meeting. As just my committee, we have, I have an updated flyer that I'll share with all of you with the updated numbers. So I have my website, I have my flyers, I have my signs all around town, I'm sure you've seen them. I have some in my car for anybody who wants one. We have a postcard that is going to all residences in Littleton. Trying to figure out exact timing on that, but shooting for around when the town meeting booklet hits, for maximum, people not throwing it in the garbage. So we are, as a private committee, we are doing as much as we can, but I really seconding Rob with, people are getting to know me, but I'm not an elected official. I'm not, people still don't really know who I am. So it's huge to have all of your voices on top of ours. It's definitely a group effort. And I am here to help amplify. I am here to stand beside. I am here to, we're here. So it's going to be a big push to get this through, but I think, thank God for the numbers. I mean, huge amount of work to get these numbers where they are. So I really thank you all for your incredible work on getting these numbers where they are. Because I mean, the way I see it, a yes vote is now less expensive than a no vote. And unless I'm missing something huge, I mean, that's it right there. So we need to just communicate that as loudly as we can, and hopefully that'll do it. So anyway, thank you all for your time and so much for this hopefully beautiful school.
The website's really good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Where can I buy your shirt?
Oh, yes, this is
It's your back.
Huh? Oh, and my back, yes, so this is our merch. Yeah, this is also a fundraiser, the shirts, so they're available through the website. Anyway, thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Annalise.
Hey, Steve, just one, I mentioned to Robin, but what happens if we run the numbers with a fixed cost per year, rather than a decreasing cost? So the 719 number maybe comes down to like year 10 numbers. I know we don't normally borrow that way, but $511 in 20 years is a lot less than $719 this year, right? It's, with inflation, $511 is more like $400. So
this time last year, Justin asked the same question. Why isn't it more like a mortgage than what it is now? And I ran the two scenarios side by side. The break even was like in year 5, where it was less of a payment, and then it switched. So it was 5 years of benefit, and those benefit years weren't that much. And you really paid on the back end because this payment goes down pretty, I mean, if you look at 10 years on that total payments, that's $3.1 million per year, as opposed to the 4.8 up front. And the fixed payment is, somewhere in between, but it really hits on the back end.
but on the back end, your money's not worth as much anyway. So, I mean, so. I don't know if it would make it an easier sell or not.
In my experience, it doesn't, and it doesn't make that much sense to me, but we can certainly run those numbers again and run it through the committee.
If we were to do that, is it true that the average payment is then greater than $599?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
But your first year payment is $650 instead of $720, so.
Yeah, so
you're
$50 a month, it's what, $40 a month?
Like I said, the break even's like in year 5.
Yeah. Because it's the fixed principal.
I understand, but also your money's worth less in 5 years than it is now, so.
We understand that too.
Okay, is there anything else from the committees or anything? We can.
I just had one one
Oh,
more.
yes,
So
Justin.
members, I heard from Littleton Youth Baseball and Softball today. Members of the organization were not able to join us this evening. They would like to be one of the folks at the microphone in support of the project. They recognize that they have 3 baseball fields, well, technically, I guess it's 2 baseball fields and a softball diamond at the location now. They would like some assurance that they would be involved in the conversation, that when the new, if this were to pass, that then they would also receive 3 diamonds back. And in theory, they would love to be able to maybe fit into a Clover design with 4 fields, if that's at all possible. So they wanted to be here tonight to say, hey, we'd love to support the project. We just want to know when it would be appropriate to get involved in the conversation and talk about the fields that are gonna be as a result of the project. They would obviously feel silly supporting the project and then find out that they don't end up with baseball fields. So that's my public comment for their benefit.
January.
January, okay.
January. Because once it passes, once we negotiate with the MSBA, once we negotiate with the CM at risk.
Right.
It's gonna be January. And then design development starts.
And
They
they
need to be-
and
they
they
need
wanna
to
be
be
at the
part of that.
microphone October 28th, so they wanna have a conversation with someone prior to the microphone.
Your schedule and MSBA is missing the boat. What he's asking for is an audience for a group of voters before the 28th.
Correct.
So somehow, that was my point earlier. MSBA be damned if it doesn't get voted on the 28th, you're out of a job, right? So I really think that what he's asking for is some kind of a meeting the next 2 weeks.
Even a phone call, or
Well,
just some sort of an
whatever.
opportunity for collaboration, and like multiple comments were made this evening, there can't be any guarantees, but that is the plan, so. I know I mentioned to you once before, Mary Lee, about the need for, the fact that we don't have any need for additional soccer field and the baseball field, so. Again, it's an organization that wants to support the project, they just want some assurances that,
Get voters out.
field space would be returned.
I think we should have
Make it happen.
Park and Rec, so we can have that meeting as well. We have a master plan for field development in town, and I think they should be part of that conversation.
I can be on that call as well, and I'm seeing Kate from Parks and Rec back there nodding, so.
Justin, share the contact information with us and we'll be happy to coordinate something.
Easy, yep.
Have anything else on Shaker Lane at all? Nothing. Thank you guys for coming. We have one more piece of business that we need to attend, and we don't need to keep you out any later than this. School committee,
Thank you,
we'd
guys.
like, the school committee, I think it's Dave. School committee, if you could please stick around,
Good to stay.
please.
You got it.
Robin, this is you.
Yep, I'm getting there. Okay, so we're talking about projections for FY 27 through FY 32. Right now, we're looking at a $1.2 million deficit. The senior center debt payment is in the new FY 27 projection, that's when it first comes online. The sewer debt payment, 20% increase we're looking at for health insurance, and a finalization of all collective bargaining agreements in this FY 27 budget. We've already utilized betterment funds to offset some of the sewer debt. The plan design change for health costs is being looked at, and a potential savings for the senior center because it came in under budget. So we're just waiting, we won't know until we get the final numbers, but it looks like $500,000 at least under budget. Depending on what rates come back at, we should save some money there.
We have the potential FY '27 budget impacts. One thing that's in discussions right now will be very quickly is EH staff expansion. That is maybe potentially mid-year that is gonna have that conversation with the director. We also have, it's OPEB full valuation year. So that is, the finance team has been given the first round of edits to be answered this month. And we should have in October, the final OPEB liability amount. Another thing that's impacts the FY '27, increased cleaning and other facility costs for this building. That was something that was not factored in, and it's something that appears to be, we received no bids, I believe, outside of the existing contractor. Yeah. And we're looking at an increase there of approximately 15 to 17,000 from that number. We've got the ongoing common class study implementation, which will be part of the annual town meeting, and that will have the impact in going forward as we move forward. And as we're all aware here, we've got the change in governance, the Charter Review Committee that is working hard every 2 weeks and meeting to review the current form of government and looking at making the changes going forward, which will have a financial impact as we go forward.
So looking ahead,
Can
this is,
we just go back to one
sure,
part, the
which slide?
Yeah, EHS staff, that's the position that we had promised them?
It was a wait and see.
Yeah, it wasn't.
There's no promise.
It was a wait and see. See,
It was, if we
operate
gave you a
within the
staff
building
number,
and
yes, no, we had a balanced budget, so it was, if we give you a staff number, then we have to take it from somewhere else, cause our budget was balanced at that point.
Okay, but Steve, you remember.
The finance committee said, in speaking with Liz, once the building is open, if she had a need for another admin person, then we would fund it out of the FinCom's reserve fund.
Reserve, yeah.
For the rest
For
of
6
this year,
months.
for the 6 months, at around $30,000 is what it was.
Which would still be an FY '27.
That's what both boards agreed to
Yeah,
during the budget session.
It was an agreement.
It was.
It was.
if needed,
Yeah,
it wasn't a guarantee, it was if
It
needed.
wasn't a guarantee, we were gonna speak with Liz after she ran the building to make sure that she absolutely needed it and see if she could manage her way through this. So, I haven't heard from Liz yet, I know there's been talk about it though.
And I asked her on Friday to reach out to both of you.
So this is the 5-year projection, as you can see, the deficit increases every year. And it's all, we don't have any impacts for 550 King Street or anything in there yet, so hopefully those outlooks get better, but that's where we're at right now. The 5-year assumptions that we made was a 9% increase in health insurance. Right now, we're looking at 20% for this year, so I don't know where that will go. We would be probably decreasing our OPEB contributions, but it would be offset by Middlesex retirement. We did an 8% increase in Neshoba Tech school assessment. These assumptions, again, don't include sewer user fees, which need to be phased in as new users come online. And there's also no increase to revenue for 550 King.
Well, for some of the 5-year debt assumptions that we have is town hall build out for in FY '28, and that was approximately $3 million. We've got Fay Park at $1.65 million, and community pool for FY '30 is part of the plan at $3 million. Outside the levy, we have the numbers that were just expressed. For Shaker Lane, we have the potential of a dog park in FY '30, and the DPW facility in FY '31, which Brian had asked for earlier, and a new fire engine for FY '33 outside of the levy.
That fire engine, is that new on the schedule? Because there was one this year and
One
one
next
next
year.
year.
Right.
I think it's a medic, it's not a fire engine, I think it's a medic.
Because we, was it on the capital plan from last year? Because we went through and we funded everything, so I don't know why that's showing up as outside the levy.
Okay, I'll take a look.
We didn't have any borrowings outside the levy. Even the dog park wasn't outside the levy.
Okay.
Just DPW and pool inside the hot shaker.
Okay.
The pool is kind of a,
It's a pool, yes, the pool was out
it's
there.
even further away than the Wish, to be honest.
You're showing that as.
It's in the capital plan.
As
It's in
inside the
10
levy?
year.
You're showing community
Doesn't
pool
mean
as
it's coming.
inside the levy?
Yes,
I,
$3 million.
it's,
For a pool? You need roof and you need, it's
It's
gonna
the
be, I'm
Wilson
thinking it's like
Aquatics.
3 times
A
that or
lot more
more,
than
yeah.
oh, absolutely.
I'm still salty, it's not in the high school, so.
That's-
That was part of Park and Rec's capital plan, correct? Okay.
Suggested budget message here, we have level service in which there would be, it's only increases that would be necessary to maintain current level of service and with no additional personnel or expense requests. It would be the budget message. We can
Aren't those messages somewhat in conflict, as if a department has additional requirements of service, they're gonna need additional people?
Yes, I mean, but we also wanted to take into account with this building right here with EHS. It is gonna be levels, but here is an exception to the budget message, which is regularly across the board with the other departments. And that's it.
Can you go back to the long-term numbers? Why is it jumped $3 million between 28 and 29? What's the $3 million extra?
69 to 72.
The budget deficit's 1.8 one year and 4.6 the next.
I'm looking to see.
We should be getting rid of most of the sewer debt, right? Cause it should be paid for by users. So I'm not
We
sure why.
never get rid of all the sewer debt. The towns, because we didn't,
But we've already paid our
we
share.
didn't better the whole project.
I
There
thought
were parts of the project that were
we've already put in our $2 million, it was our betterment fee.
not the town. It's the barn, the affluent recharge, all those things were not part of the betterment. So the town will always have some sewer debt that we hope that will be eaten up with user fees that we won't. We just have to hash it out. But it's like 80% of the project was bettered. And you can't pay more than that with betterment funds. So I don't know, I'd have to look line by line and see which one.
And I thought we were more level on the sewer budget for 27.
Not yet.
I thought that was why we had to have all the assessment.
We're using 600,000 betterment funds. And a portion of the town's betterment money that we paid, we're spreading out over 3 years.
The from what I recall, the operating costs for the sewer system, the new system, we're still footing the bill for the
Right,
majority.
but what we're showing was sewer debt service on
The
the previous
the
slide.
sewer doesn't show up on the debt service line.
Go back one more.
It's the sewer debt service is like 1.8 million.
Sewer debt service 1.8, so how much of that is the town responsible for versus?
We're using a million of it in FY '27 is gonna be town.
So the sewer debt service payment that the town is supporting right now is flowing through the wastewater line item in the operating budget. doesn't show up in the town's debt, it's not the town's
No, it's
debt
enterprise fund
technically.
debt, technically.
Even though it's an enterprise fund, we don't show it on that as the way it goes. So the operating, so it's the operations of the sewer plus the debt service that show up in that line item, less what the town is putting from the betterment fund against it. And unfortunately, that's not enough in these first few years because we haven't collected a lot. This upcoming actual
28,
tax
I think.
bill in February will show the first part of the full betterment, right?
Right,
The first of 30 years.
Yeah, it's like 2 mil, I think, yeah.
So as we go further along in the budget years, we should start to see a reduction in that. But it's still us operating the system until 550 King comes online and more users
I
join the
understand that
system.
we are responsible for the operating costs of it until someone else. I thought we were out of the debt part of it
No.
once we did the betterments. So we're on the hook for the debt portion.
Well, we haven't even collected, we just issued the final
It-
betterment
right,
letters.
but
so-
It'll be
this is
less, Mark, but we still have to collect the stuff that we fronted them in the past. And the sewer department is well aware of, they need to reimburse us for that stuff.
Well, it looks like the number in 27 went up from what it was in 26.
I don't think any of that reimbursement is factored in here because we're still waiting for Nick to come up with numbers for us. So that's the best as I can recall what happened.
Okay.
You don't need, maybe you could go back to it, the schedule. What is the assumption on the increase year after, if you go back to the schedule, on the school appropriation?
Too far.
Oh, God,
You have
I'm
it.
whizzing by.
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah, I was just curious what you folks are using for budgeting purposes for an increase year over year on the school appropriation.
Right now, you're,
Percentage, you mean?
Yes.
right now in FY 27, you're at 3, but the town's at 2.2. These are early numbers, so,
Right, was there another one that showed 28, 29?
yep, those are all at 4
This one, maybe?
Yep,
The 5-year
those are
projection,
4%.
4%?
Mhm.
Okay.
right now.
And then in the capital planning and warrant articles, we've got a $5 million expense and then 2.5, 2.9, 1.7, 1.5. So are those earmarked projects that you folks have already sort of selected and have thought through and those are picked and is the high school roof one of those? Is the boilers inside the, not Shaker Lane, but the high school boilers
I
inside one
can
of those
look,
projects?
I don't know exactly every number that's in them.
Okay.
If it follows the capital plan that
Then it's
we
in
had in place, then it should be
Okay,
there.
cause we have submitted the
I
capital plan.
haven't looked at the details behind these, so I can't vouch for it.
And maybe throughout tonight's entire presentation, we always say, you know, there's no assumption here on 550 King Street.
Correct, and there isn't these numbers.
What can be done from the town standpoint to move that project along? Because it's clear to me, probably to others, that without an increase in tax revenue generated from that site, we have problem year over year over year. And building permits, approvals have been issued, not permits or whatever, but we know what we're getting, or we know what we've approved, we just don't know when we're getting it, right?
The developer will be giving the planning board and the select board a schedule of development phases. And that will be coming probably over the next 30 days.
Okay.
And additionally, there's been peer review that has been issued for the traffic study, and the DEIR and also Conservation Commission has, they have their peer review report that was in for the site. Things are going forward, and that the developer has to submit the approval for the specific units of, I believe it's 309 units for phase 1.
Right.
And then they're looking at trying to get more aggressive with including maybe the mixed development of retail with residential on the top also. But that continues to be a work in progress. They still have not been permitted for the boutique hotel that's planned. And depending upon what is going on with the peer review, the Conservation Commission, that's gonna determine location of some independent businesses of where they can go on the site. And that's, but they're not, that's not far off in regards to what the developer had believed could be developed there and what the third-party peer review came back with. So it is, and trust me, there's no one here that would like to see this move.
Great, so I guess my question was, what could be done to help move this along? Because as we went through the MSBA process, here's your deadline, submit the paperwork, you know, and at any point in time, we were in jeopardy of losing our $38 million grant and getting back in line.
Right.
So is there anything that the town of Littleton could propose to, I mean, we can't have approvals out there forever, right?
Correct, but the communication with that team is constant with the town in regards to next steps and giving updates and moving it as forward as possible. So they did talk roughly at the planning board that looking at potential construction start date in March of 26. And that is, but they will come back with a schedule.
Sure, cause
At the end of the day, it's a private development.
I understand
You
that.
can't force anybody to build.
You know, to some degree, the approvals shouldn't be infinite.
Open-ended, yeah.
Right.
Right?
Fair enough.
And if I was a developer, I wouldn't wanna be investing hundreds of millions of dollars into a town where the financials are gonna look like this. And we're level funding and we're talking about cuts and all this stuff, so it's a partnership with a town, and I know we're working with the developer and we're in this together, it's an improvement, it's a win-win for both sides, and it needs to stay that way. But I really feel like this has gotta move along, right? Like, we've issued the approvals, let's see some action so that we can get some tax revenue, because without any tax revenue,
Right.
the situation doesn't look great.
Right, and
Do you agree, Karen?
I don't,
Your body language
I don't
is suggesting
disagree,
otherwise.
what would you suggest we do to force a private developer to create market conditions such that they can get folks to sign and they can promise us when they're gonna build?
But we also have to remember that we had, and I'm sorry to interrupt, Madam Chairwoman, but we have to remember that we have the infrastructure that had to be done on site on 550. And that is just finishing up the completion there. Nothing can be built until that was done. And that has been going on for the past 3.5, 4 months.
What I was suggesting is, and you know, I don't know Massachusetts, you know, statute or anything, but is that there are checkpoints that need to be accomplished associated with the approvals. So and perhaps that's already the case, and I'm gonna be excited about some checkpoints that are arriving in the near future. But I'm just a little concerned that we're looking at, 5 years of budgets here, and there's a deficit, and a lot of this is contingent upon potential tax revenue associated with that site.
Sure, so I think planning board is working on those checkpoints and figuring out per Jim's, what that schedule is gonna be, how much they're approved for, when, and under what conditions. And some of those conditions are, you've gotta finish what you said you'd do before.
Right.
Before you can move on.
Fortunately for us, the rental market is pretty strong. So that's why he wants to build phase one as quickly as possible to start getting those places leased so that he can roll that money into phase two. So from that standpoint, we're in a good position. And as Jim alluded to, he's looking to start the retail before he finishes start the retail before he finishes the residential. At least that's the plan right now. So I don't know if there's any way that, to your point, Karen, for us to be able to, kind of incentivize him to do it more quickly, or, hey, we give you these permits. With planning board, they have a 5-year window, and typically there's like multiple extensions beyond that for like a residential development.
Right.
But I think Jim's point that we just passed the point where they can start going vertical,
Right.
like yesterday, more or less. So now it's been a lot of hurry up and wait, and I think now we really are getting to the point where the rubber's gonna hit the road.
Is there anyone working with the state on the proposed busing, the proposed
Shuttle?
shuttle and yeah,
That
hopefully.
was already a planning board
Yeah,
decision.
that's already in, because if that was, you know, something that was really real, if you want incentivize, here, your renters, you know, your renters will have a way to get to the station and to Lowell.
We,
Yeah.
we did, when Keith Bergman was town administrator, we worked with Westford and put together the Crosstown Connect. So, there's been a bus stop on that property.
Yeah, I've seen it, and I didn't know what this whole status was, but I when you were talking about incentivizing, I mean, you know, this is your property and we're gonna make it really easy for people who rent here to go come and go.
Yeah, it definitely behooves him to make it better.
Yeah.
And that's the plan,
So,
for just that reason, to make it more attractive for his tenants.
yeah, absolutely. There's an idea.
I'm good.
30 and 31.
Okay.
We've got 26 or whatever the hell it is.
No,
Yeah, we
it's
have,
just to show you that's where we're at.
So we have a joint meeting coming up on the 22nd with the select board to do our warrant recommendations. FinCom, I'd like to meet on the 16th, Tuesday. Just FinCom to talk over the warrant, make sure we're all okay on everything. We'll be meeting with the select board. Brian, you're not here, right?
I think I'm on the 16th.
16th? All right, get back to me.
I'm not here.
Okay, we'll work something out that, the date that you're here. Since we need a quorum. With that, I'm done. Are you done?
Well, maybe.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. We're not ready. Thank you, everyone.